Well, good evening. Welcome to Grover Hill Zion United Methodist Church's Thursday evening devotions from around the kitchen table, where we've been discussing and sharing the story behind some of the great hymns of the church. This Christmas season, during Advent season, we've been looking at some of the great old hymns or the great old carols of the church and Christmas time, this time of year as well. The meanings behind why they were written and perhaps what they mean for us today. And tonight what we're looking at is, I want to remind you before I go any farther that on Christmas Eve at 204 South Harrison in Zion in Grover Hill, we'll have a Christmas Eve service at 7:30, and many people are participating in the service, and it'll be just a very nice time. Great way to start the Christmas holiday with your family and friends in worshiping God on Christmas Eve. So invite you to come and fellowship with us then as well. Well, the hymn, as I started to say, the hymn we're looking at, or the Christmas carol we're looking at tonight, and looking at the story of it, is called Silent Night. You may remember Silent Night. It's a song that's been sung for more than 200 years now. 200 years makes it sound like it's an obsolete song, doesn't it? But it's not. It's still as relevant today as the day it was written. Silent Night. Perhaps you can hear instrumental music playing in the background by Andre Roux. Of course, he's a violin player, but he has a wonderful orchestra. And it's an instrumental. Just the instrumental music alone bring you a peace that you just never realized existed. Just the song itself brings you, or for me it does, it brings me into the presence of God. And it has so many people, so many millions of people since the time it was written. Over the century, hundreds of Christmas carols have been written, and many of them quickly fall into obscurity. But Silent Night has not been that way. Silent Night has endured since its creation. It's been translated into hundreds of different languages, and it's been designated by UNESCO as a treasured item of intangible cultural heritage, and arranged in dozens and dozens of different musical styles, from heavy metal to gospel. Silent Night is a song that even if somebody isn't attending church someplace, Silent Night is just one of those songs that's easily recognizable to them. So it's become part of the Christmas soundscape, hasn't it? I mean, you can't hardly celebrate Christmas without singing Silent Night. Its origins were in a small alpine town in Austria, in the countryside there. And so it had rather humble beginnings. The song's lyrics were originally written in German. Just after the end of the Napoleonic Wars, by a young Austrian priest by the name of Joseph Mohr. In the fall of 1816, Mohr's congregation in the town of Maria Far were reeling. And 12 years after 12 years of war had decimated the country's political and social infrastructure, and they were struggling. Meanwhile, though, the previous year, one historian would later dub that year as the year without a summer. It had been cold. It never really got very hot that summer in Austria. It had been really chilly for a summer. And the things that caused that were the eruption of Indonesia's Mount Tambora in 1815. It had caused widespread climate change all over Europe. The volcanic ash in the atmosphere caused almost continuous storms, even snow in the middle of summer. Crops failed and there was widespread famine. Times were tough. Moore's congregation was poverty-stricken, hungry, and traumatized. And so he crafted a set of 6 poetic verses to convey hope that there was still a God who cared. Silent Night, the German version states, "Today all power of fatherly love is poured out, and Jesus as brother embraces the peoples of the world." Moore was a gifted violinist and guitarist, and he could have probably composed the music for his poem, but instead he sought help from a friend. In 1817, Moore transferred to the parish of St. Nicholas in the town of Oberndorf, Austria, just south of Salzburg. There he asked his friend Franz Gruber, who was a local school teacher and organist, to write the music for his 6-verse poem. On Christmas Eve in 1818, the two friends sang Silent Night together for the first time in front of Moore's congregation, with Moore playing his guitar. The song was apparently well received by Moore's parishioners, most of them who worked as boat builders and shippers in the salt trade that was central to the economy of the region. The melody and harmonization of Silent Night is actually based on an Italian musical style called Siciliana that mimics the sound of water and rolling waves. 2 large rhythmic beats split into 3 parts each. In this way, Gruber's music reflected the daily soundscape of Moore's congregation, who lived and worked along the Salzach River. In order to become a worldwide phenomenon, Silent Night would need to resonate beyond the boundaries of Oberndorf. And according to a document written by Franz Gruber in 1854, the song first became popular in nearby Zillertal Valley. From there, 2 traveling families of folk singers, the Strassers and the Rainers, included the tune in their shows. The song became popular across Europe and eventually in America, where the Rainers sang it on Wall Street in 1839. And at the same time, German-speaking missionaries spread the song from Tibet to Alaska and translated it into local languages. And by the mid-19th century, Silent Night had even made its way to the subarctic Inuit communities along the Labrador coast. It was on the move. The lyrics Silent Night have always carried an important message for Christmas Eve observances in churches around the world, and they still do for us today, don't they? The song's lilting melody and peaceful lyrics also remind us of a universal sense of grace, that transcends Christianity and unites people across cultures and faith. You know, even, I think I said a moment ago, even if you don't attend church, even if the church isn't part of your life, more than likely you still are familiar with Silent Night, and more than likely it brings peace to your soul. Well, perhaps at no time in the song's history was this message more important than during the Christmas truce of 1914. You may remember, they made a movie that here not a couple years ago, but that in its own right is a wonderful story. It's an unbelievable story. When at the height of World War I, German and British soldiers on the front lines in Flanders laid down their weapons on Christmas Eve and together sang Silent Night. Unheard of, and it hasn't happened since. The song's fundamental message of peace, even in the midst of suffering, has bridged cultures and generations. Great songs do this, don't they? They speak of hope in hard times and of beauty that arises from pain. And they offer comfort and solace. And they are inherently human and infinitely adaptable. Well, as you sing Silent Night, again, you might want to look it up and just listen to it and just meditate on it. And it will more than likely bring peace to your spirit. Well, Merry Christmas.